What's going on, everybody? This is a donation request. This is for Rob. We are doing the entire U2 album, The Unforgettable Fire. Okay, so I didn't grow up with any U2 albums. I never had any U2 albums. I know probably all their hits. I've played many of them. And at some point, I probably have heard the Joshua Tree. But this is not anything that I've spun a zillion times type of thing. So I'm not like super familiar is what I'm saying. Anyways, but The Unforgettable Fire, I don't know. I do know there's what is the single on here? Pride in the Name of Love. Yes, so of course I know that song. I've played it. I don't believe I know the other songs, so we're gonna check it out. All right, 1984. Irish rock band U2, produced by Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois. Very cool. Band wanted to pursue a new musical direction following the harder hitting rock of the previous album War, 1983. As a result, they employed Eno and Lanois to produce and assist in their experimentation with a more ambient sound. The resulting change, this is where like Edge gets his delays and reverbs and things. Album's title is a reference to the Unforgettable Fire, an art exhibit about the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Recording May 1984 at Slane Castle, where the band lived, wrote, and recorded to find new inspiration. The album was completed in August 84 at Windmill Lane Studios. Features atmospheric sounds and lyrics that lead vocalist Bono describes as sketches. Pride in the Name of Love and MLK are lyrical tributes to Martin Luther King Jr. Unforgettable Fire received generally favorable reviews from critics and produced the band's biggest hit of all time, Pride in the Name of Love, as well as the live favorite Bad. Okay. Bono said, "We knew the world was ready to receive the heirs to The Who. All we had to do was to keep doing what we were doing and we would become the biggest band since Zeppelin, without a doubt, but something just didn't feel right. We felt we had more dimension than just the next big anything. We had something unique to offer. The innovation was what would suffer if we went down the standard rock route. We were looking for another feeling." Okay. U2 feared that following the overt rock of their 83 album War and the War Tour, they were in danger of becoming another shrill, sloganeering arena rock band. So what did they become? Not sloganeering, I guess. I would call them an arena rock band. I would say they're an arena rock band. I don't really see them playing clubs. Or even theaters. I mean, I suppose theaters. I love theaters, by the way. Theaters are like my favorite shows. Like, by far. Love theaters. Okay. Anyways. Following their concert at Dublin's Phoenix Park Race Course in August 83, one of the final days of the War Tour, lead vocalist Bono spoke in metaphors about the group breaking up and reforming with a different direction. In the 10th issue of U2 magazine, they had a U2 magazine? I'm sorry? Released in February 84, Bono hinted at radical changes on the next album, saying that he could not sleep at night with the thought of it all, and that they were undertaking a real departure. As bassist Adam Clayton recalls, "We were looking for something that was a bit more serious, more arty." After completing the war tour in Japan late that year, U2 rehearsed at Bono's seaside home in a Martello Tower in Bray, County Wicklow. During this time, early versions of the songs Pride in the Name of Love, The Unforgettable Fire, and A Sort of Homecoming were composed. U2 had recorded their first 3 albums at Windmill Lane Studios, but decided to find a new location for their next studio album. Clayton lamented the lack of a live room in which the band could play together at Windmill Lane, while the band's manager, Paul McGuinness, said the studio had barely enough space for people to work. He set to finding a new location, came up with Church Hall and Ranelagh. But he found it overpriced. The band's tour manager, Dennis Sheehan, these are fabulous Irish names, also searched for suitable locations and found Slane Castle in County Meath. The building's owner, Lord Henry Mountcharles, offered to lease it to the group for less than half the cost of Church Hall, and also offered lodging and dining for the band and crew on premises. Castle's Gothic ballroom, which was originally built for music and had a 30-foot high dome ceiling, also attracted the band, as they were looking to capture the natural acoustics of a room in their recordings. Very cool. After working with producer Steve Lillywhite on their first 3 albums, the band sought experimentation rather than to create the Son of War. Both Lillywhite and the group agreed that it was time for a change of producers and that they should not repeat the same formula. For the next studio album, the band considered hiring Connie Plank, whose previous production credits included Can, Kraftwerk, and Ultravox. U2 also met with Roxy Music producer Rhett Davies, but Clayton said that it didn't really go anywhere. They also considered Jimmy Iovine, who had produced their live album Under Blood Red Sky in '83, but they found their early musical ideas for the new album to be too European for an American producer. Interesting. Iovine thought that he was in line for the job and went so far as to hold a meeting about recording logistics at Slane Castle with his engineer Shelly Yakis and with another engineer Randy Ezrati, whose mobile recording studio U2 would be using once again. Okay. However, at the last minute, McGuinness informed Ezrati that they would be proceeding with different producers. U2 instead had turned their attention to hiring musician-producer Brian Eno. Guitarist The Edge had long admired Eno's music, particularly his ambient and weird works. The group were also fond of his collaborations with Talking Heads. Eno was hesitant to work with a rock band, and when contacted by U2, he told them he was considering retiring from music production to become a video artist. Reluctantly, Eno agreed to meet with the band in Dublin and brought along his engineer Daniel Lanois with the intention of recommending he work with them instead. Lanois had his own ambitions of producing a rock band. When the band played Under a Blood Red Sky to Eno, his eyes glazed over. The Edge said of him, "I think he was intimidated by the lack of irony in what we were doing. He'd come from Talking Heads, the Rhode Island school designed RISD, living in New York, and here was this Irish band hitting everything full on, completely earnest, hearts on sleeves, no irony at all." Eno also thought that the group were frightened of being overpowered by some softness. His doubts were resolved by Bono's persuasiveness and his increasing perception of what he called U2's lyrical soul in abundance. Eno was impressed by how they spoke, which was not in terms of music or playing, but in terms of their contributions to the identity of the band as a whole. Band's discussion about pursuing different recording techniques and capturing the ambience of a recording space also piqued his interest. Ultimately, Eno and Lanois agreed to produce the record with the understanding that if Eno's working relationship with U2 was not fruitful, they would still have a solid producer in Lanois on which they could fall back. Island Records founder Chris Blackwell initially tried to talk U2 out of hiring Eno, believing that just when they were about to achieve the highest levels of success, Eno would bury them under a layer of avant-garde nonsense. Nick Stewart, also of Island Records, thought the band were mad. Crazy, right? Blackwell instructed him to dissuade U2 from working with Eno. Stewart recalled Blackwell telling him, "You better sort your band out because they're going in a very odd direction." Stewart was unable to change their minds, prompting Blackwell to fly to Dublin to meet with the group. Ultimately, Blackwell too was convinced by Bono's persuasiveness and the band's enthusiasm for the collaboration. Stewart said, in hindsight, the group's decision to stretch themselves and find an extra dimension became the turning point in their career. There you go. Yes, of course. I mean, I don't know their early records, but just from the sound of everything that I'm reading, it's like, okay, you were like a straight up rock band, and now you're trying to bring in these other elements to further develop your sound. Which, you know, as we know, worked. Okay, the band arrived at Slane Castle on May 7th, 1984 for a month-long recording session. A makeshift control room was set up in the castle's drawing room. Ezrati's company, Ephanal Music, which recorded U2's concerts in Boston at Red Rocks Amphitheater the previous year, was hired to provide their then unique portable 24-track recording system. The equipment, which came in wheeling flight cases with removable lids, was described by Lanois as a heavily modified sound workshop mixing console with a Stevens tape recorder. He said it was not the ultimate technical system, but that the priority was to capture the feeling of the band's music. Ezrati's equipment was set up in the castle's library, dubbed the Chinese Room, with cables running into the adjacent ballroom where the band played. The band and crew lived at the castle during the sessions, helping to foster a camaraderie among them. The site provided a relaxed and experimental atmosphere. U2 worked long days at the castle, sometimes starting at 10 a.m. and finishing at 1 a.m. Eno, who worked on a more executive schedule than other members of the creative team, was focused on creative ideas and conceptual aspects, while Lanois handled the production duties. In Bill Graham's words, Eno's task was to help U2 mature a new, more experimental and European musical vocabulary. Eno was glad that the group began the sessions with only rough sketches of songs, as he was more interested in encouraging experimentation and improvisation than refining their ideas. To that end, he often created atmospheric compositions on a synthesizer that were intended to inspire U2 and Lanois to play along with. Bono and The Edge, who the singer described as the more cerebral members of the band, were particularly drawn to Eno's ideas. The band's experiments produced 15 additional pieces of music. The Edge said that they didn't object to Eno taking liberties with what they had achieved up to that point, adding, "We were eager to learn and not precious at all about our sound and the way we worked. We threw ourselves wholeheartedly into this different approach." Very cool. According to The Edge, Eno's points of reference were philosophy and contemporary art, and he was not beholden to the standard schools of thought in rock music. Producer encouraged U2 to work on their more unconventional material, championing the songs that didn't seem very U2-ish or things that had strong beginnings but no clear destination. As a result, he did not take much interest in songs like Pride in the Name of Love or The Unforgettable Fire. Lanois would cover for him such that the two balanced each other out. Wow. Okay. Yeah, can you imagine if they didn't do Pride in the Name of Love? I wonder just listening to this, right, reading this and listening to it, if maybe Pride in the Name of Love is like a mixture of their new sound and their old kind of more rock type sound, right? Just knowing the song, right? Anyways, I don't know. We'll see. Since U2 had primarily been interested in working with Eno, Lanois was initially viewed as an interloper, which caused tension at the start of the sessions. According to Ezrati, once the band realized his musical talents, they embraced him as a fellow collaborator. As a songwriter and multi-instrumentalist, Lanois understood musical notation and was able to simplify the songwriting process for them. Drummer Larry Mullen Jr. in particular enjoyed working with Lanois as the producer took an interest in the band's rhythm section, which Mullen felt had been neglected on their past recordings. Mullen called himself not technically proficient and appreciated Lanois spending time to develop his skills and encourage different approaches to playing drums. Producer convinced Mullen to utilize timbales and two types of snare drums, one being a piccolo snare, in his drum kit, and he realized how to use brushes and tom-toms on various drum parts. Crew also experimented with distant miking of his drum kit, placing microphones up to 60 feet away. Mullen eschewed wearing headphones while playing and instead used monitor speakers, wow, which caused audio spill issues with other microphones in the recording space. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, that immediately makes it more like a live record, like an older school live record, because nowadays everybody wears in-ears, so you're not going to have that. But like to have a monitor in your face, I mean, when I play live, I still use a monitor in my face because I just like that better than in-ears. I mean, I have in-ears. Those of you who are here who remember when I used to wear them for these videos, and everybody was like, wear real headphones. So stupid. Anyways, whatever. Gotta give the people what they want. Okay, $100 headphones, no problem. $1,000 in-ears, what is that garbage? It probably sounds terrible. Okay, anyways. The Edge said that the band's plan for recording at Slane was, rather than working in the dead acoustic atmosphere of a studio and trying to revitalize the recording work using effects and reverberation and all the standard music trappings, we would go into a very live room and try to do the opposite, try and tame what would be a wild sound. Very cool. Yeah, super cool. Lanois originally intended for the band to record entirely in the ballroom, which he described as a beautiful, very tall room with big mirrors, chandeliers, and windows overlooking the river. Oh yeah, that would be potentially a horrendous sound. Just super loud. Just no soft surfaces, right? Just all hard surfaces and glass. Shortly after their arrival, the team realized that the ballroom had too much natural reverberation, necessitating the addition of sound absorption material such as drapes to the walls. Yeah, seriously. If it's just nothing but hard surfaces, I mean, I currently play in two different places. One that has like carpeting on the ceiling, right? And just more carpeting around, I should say. And another one which is like all hard surfaces, and just it's so difficult to hear just when it's just hard surfaces. Those rooms always sound like a wreck. You know, it just sounds like a wreck. Anyways, you need a balance. You got to have a balance. Okay. I'm not saying it needs to be dead, right? Just too much absorption would be like a dead room. But, you know, there needs to be a balance. Lanois said the room was only suitable for songs with openness, but not good for tracks that were quick and required punch. Right, because it's just gonna go everywhere. While crew member Stephen Rainford said, okay for chamber music, but not good for rock and roll. Consequently, most of the recording took place in the library, which is smaller, rectangular, filled with books, and provided improved sound quality. Lanois said the room helped them achieve a denser, more powerful sound on their recordings. Adding to the recording challenges were the water wheel generator on River Boyne that powered the building. Oh. During low tide or periods of no rain, there was not sufficient power to keep their recording equipment operational. Yo, what? As Ratty said, when that stupid river started to run low, the voltage would go down and it would beat the crap out of my equipment. As a backup, the team were forced to make use of an old diesel generator, which at times broke down or caught fire. Oh my Jesus. Okay. The Edge was encouraged by Eno to think of the studio as an instrument and to expand the range of his guitar tones, resulting in experiments with his equipment and guitar playing techniques. The producer processed the Edge's guitar through an AMS harmonizer effects unit, Lexicon primetime delay unit. Oh yeah, this is like a big album, so they're gonna get into equipment, huh? And a reverb chamber. Lanois at times confused the guitar sounds for keyboards. The Edge also used an EBO. I happen to have an EBO. This is an EBO. So you take it and the string goes in between this little groove here and it makes the string vibrate. So it makes it play and it'll sustain as long as you keep it there. And it's got two different settings. One is like a regular setting, one is like a harmonic setting. And I've had this thing since like high school actually. And I did do 2 Spirit of Earth albums with this. Those albums are Buzz Drone Tones and Calm Space Waves. Anyways, Evo. A slide with echo, alternative guitar tunings, and a zero sustain technique that muted his strings with tape across the bridge. Okay, so that would just be like a plucky attack sound. He experimented with the placement and miking of his guitar amplifier. At times it was situated outside of the balcony encircling the castle with close miking, and when it rained, a plastic cover to shield it. This placement was originally done for sound isolation purposes, but ended up producing a good sound. Other times his amplifier was placed at the bottom of a staircase with one microphone there and another placed at the top of the staircase. Yeah, and Daniel Lanois is a very good guitar player. Daniel Lanois pretty much made the Edge's sound, right? He like made it, right? It was like all him. What I mean, that to my knowledge, right? A Fairlight CMI, maybe I'm wrong. A Fairlight CMI synthesizer was used during the demoing phase out of convenience to help fill in placeholder textures and string ideas, marking the first time the instrument had been used on a U2 album. And I've met Daniel Lanois. I met him once, and I was wearing, in Boston, and I was wearing this like 70s style big jacket with the huge fur collar, like 70s style. Yeah, I had one of those back then because I was really into soul music and 70s and stuff like that. So I had one of those, and he commented on it because I didn't have the hair that I have now, but I had like the beard, and he was like, it was just a continuation. I never had like a big beard. I always kind of kept it tight. But anyways, and then I saw him play at I saw him in Los Angeles also. A very good guitar player, very, just producer. Really cool. Yeah, producer. That to me, that is more, you're not just what instrument you play. You're just full around musician. You're hearing all of it. You're taking it all in. You're seeing it from different viewpoints. That's one of the benefits, I think, of being a bass player, is that you kind of are forced to see music in multiple viewpoints, as opposed to most other instrumentalists see it just from their viewpoint. Not everybody. Again, there's amazing musicians on all instruments, but it's more common, to me, at least just from what I've seen, for bass players to be really good producers. Anyways, okay. These textures were later replaced with actual string arrangements, although the Fairlight CMI was kept on one song. Clayton said the synthesizer was only really used as a means to an end to see if an idea worked. Eno contributed synthesizer parts on a Yamaha DX7, while he and the Edge Also played a Yamaha CP70 electric grand piano. Bono recorded his vocals on a Neumann U47, U67, and AKG C12 microphones. Lanois said that they capture a warm sound and a bottom end and depth to Bono's vocals. For Promenade, one of the first songs for which vocals were recorded, Lanois encouraged Bono to sing quieter by increasing the volume of his vocals in his headphones. By doing so, the producer was able to force Bono to draw on the fine points of the voice. Different mic techniques for singing. Huge. Band finished recording at Slane Castle on June 5th, and began a second phase of the recording sessions at Windmill Lane Studios the following day. The original intent was to record the backing tracks at Slane before overdubbing and mixing at Windmill Lane. Clayton said this was because the mobile recording did not offer them as many options or treatment possibilities as a traditional mixing console would. However, the group ended up crafting their songs at Windmill Lane more than they originally anticipated, including re-recording Pride in the Name of Love. The Edge reflected that when recording at new locations such as Slane, it took them a few weeks to get into the momentum of the new creative surrounding. Lanois said that in hindsight, the recording sessions were split in a slightly off-balance fashion, with too much time being dedicated to experimenting and not enough to fundamental recording. Within the band, there were concerns that their material recorded at Slane was too skeletal to consider completing yet, prompting them to reevaluate and in some cases re-record it. Eno, on the other hand, was more interested in recording as few takes as possible and preserving the rough, spontaneous nature of the music. Yeah, because he was looking for improvisation and loose stuff. I totally get that, and I'm down with that also. And also, because once you start recording more than 3 takes, like 4, 5, 6 takes, right? Let's say 5 or more. Just somebody who's recorded enough is going to know that your best takes are within those first few. That's usually the case. If they're not, you're not good enough to be doing this. You don't know the material enough. Just things like that. It's always your first few takes. This is, I think that Lee Sklar, right? And many studio musicians talk like this because it's anybody with experience in the studio knows this. It's just, to me, it's just common knowledge. You don't want to be doing a zillion takes because it just gets draining. The spontaneity is fully gone. You know, the excitement is fully gone. It just becomes like a chore. If there's something that you gotta nail, you gotta nail it. But again, any professional is gonna nail it within those first few takes. That's just what it is. So anyways, yeah, I totally get that. Clayton said that Eno would get easily bored if he had nothing to do, while Mullen said he was impatient with U2's creative process. Tension grew between them and the production team largely because the band weren't at a point where they could finish anything. Throughout the recording sessions, Bono had been ad-libbing his vocals without completing lyrics. Mullen explained that the group's reliance on Bono to help complete the musical composition on their songs took time away from him to work on the lyrics independently. While recording, we seemed to do our best work when we were in the room together. Yeah. We depended on Bono to be there every step of the way. He had to be singing something, anything to get the song finished. When Bono came in and strapped on a guitar or started to sing, the band responded. A song recorded in the room with Bono and a song recorded without him could be very different animals altogether. Whereas Bono wanted to finalize the lyrics, Eno, Lanois, and The Edge advocated preserving the improvised nature of his vocals, telling the singer, "Why write lyrics? I'm getting the feeling from this." In retrospect, Bono lamented leaving the lyrics to songs like Bad and Pride in the Name of Love as incomplete sketches. 12 days before the deadline to complete the record, Bono told his bandmates he did not think he would be able to finish the lyrics in time, creating a panic internally. McGuinness reminded the group of their commitment to tour Australia and New Zealand in less than a month, and that the producers and studio would not be available afterwards. To complete the album, the band worked 20-hour days for the final 2 weeks. Eno worked the first half of days, while Lanois worked the second half. Eno departed before the album was completed, leaving Lanois to oversee the final mixes. On their final day in the studio, the band worked overnight to complete the album by 7 to 8 a.m. on August 5th. As Lanois was preparing to depart for London with the album tapes for mastering, Bono expressed interest in recording another take of his vocals for a sort of homecoming. With his taxi to the airport waiting outside, Lanois queued up the tapes for Bono to record one final vocal take. Lanois told the band he would mix it in London and then departed, delivering the tapes for mastering in the basement of Blackwell's offices. Portions of the recording sessions were filmed by Barry Devlin and his crew for an RTE TV documentary. Very cool, wow. 30-minute program, The Making of the Unforgettable Fire, was released in '85 on VHS as part of the Unforgettable Fire collection. Very cool to have that. Devlin said that he did not think the band and crew had thought through the logistics and access required for a film crew to document the making of the album. He often encountered no entry signs on doors and windows when attempting to film their group, forcing him to take a more artful, impressionistic approach to the documentary. I mean, that's cool. Okay, now they're getting into song, like composition type of stuff, which I don't want to get into yet because I want to hear the songs. Okay, yeah, we'll leave it at that. All right, and now we're just gonna run through the album. So I'll catch you then later.